I think I'm going to start from here, and this is going to be an impromptu episode. I'm actually recording this on my phone. I'm just sitting outside, so if it's loud, it's because I'm on my phone outside. And I do these voice recordings. They're like journal entries, and I think that this is something that's really cool for anyone to do, especially if you don't like writing, but being able to get your thoughts out. And talking with yourself and hearing your voice is so powerful. So I want to talk about my healing journey, but also purpose. And I think that's going to be the topic. Hello, friends, and thank you so much for joining me on the You Are Limitless podcast. I'm your host, Madam Chiko, coming to you from outside and also from the holistic wellness space as a spiritual transformational life coach. And I thank you guys for joining me here on another episode on YALL. And if you're just not tuning in, I am always happy to have you here with me on my journey and having me a part of yours. And this is a different episode because normally I am inside with my mic, my headphones, and I've been doing a lot of impromptu episodes where there is no script and I'm just speaking. But this time, I just got this another burning desire where I really want to talk about some of the things that have come up on my journey and other people's as well in terms of like plant medicine and habits and in my purpose. And hopefully this helps too. And also I really wanted to make this episode where I'm holding my iPhone, just chilling outside, because you can always find time to journal your thoughts, to talk it out. And I do this all the time. And I get so much insight from that. And I listen to myself and my mantras and what I'm telling myself. And that's where this idea comes from. So I am always excited about getting into our vortex, raising our vibration, and discovering more of who we truly are. And that's what this podcast is truly about, because I've been there. I have dealt with such extreme adversity due to drug abuse as a child, and then, of course, being a justice impacted individual where I was in and out of the justice field until finally I said enough was enough. Now I help people come back into their truth in so many ways, more ways than I could have ever imagined. And it feels really good when people from all walks of life reach out to me with questions they may have about something that they're dealing with. And it's just not anything I expected because I've released expectations on how things should be, because I'm just acting on my purpose, acting on my passion, doing what I have been called to do, what the universe is telling me that this is what I'm supposed to do. And in order for me to act on that purpose, it requires me to continue my healing journey, continue the work, the internal work, because if we think that we have everything all figured out and we know all the answers, then we stop growing. We are not receptive to learning more about ourselves and our environment and who we are and what we can be, and most importantly, who we are not. Because the more that we evolve in our journey, what we realize is that there's a lot of things that we are not. And when we are unconscious to this, when we don't have conscious awareness of these things, of these programmings, we just play them out like it's nothing, like it's normal, like this is life, this is our lot in life, and there's nothing else to that. And that is something I'm learning on my healing journey as a coach, a healer. What I'm discovering is more of myself and more of my programmings that just need to be tweaked up a little bit. And something that I realized that I've been doing that I didn't realize I've been doing is finding comfort externally. And this could be with anything, okay? Like, it's so much easier whenever you're doing something that you know is not good for you, such as alcohol or hard drugs, okay? That's easy for me anyways. And this is no judgment for those who do lean towards alcohol and drugs. I get it. I've been there. I understand. I see you. I validate you, and I love you. However, we know that it's not good for our well-being to be reliant on these things in the long run, and it leaves us depleted. It leaves us disconnected, and with the addictive tendencies, it leaves us wanting more. So for me, once I detached from that lifestyle, it became easy for me to not choose that. But what's more difficult is whenever it's socially accepted, such as, overeating or scrolling on your phone, on social media. That's an addiction. Or just snacking. And that's something that I'm discovering. It's like I have this thing where I'm constantly thinking about like, okay, I'm going to go exercise so I can go eat this snack. And over the past weekend, or depending on when I release this, so it might be 2 weekends from now, I realized that I was doing that again. And I'm grateful for that because in my mind, I'm like, what? This isn't really, it's not harming me, but I can see where there's a reliant whenever I get so caught up in all the work that I have to do. And also, just really quick, there's a really cute dog outside. So if he comes or she comes towards me, I might have to pause this just to say hi and see if he has an owner. But we get caught up so much in our programmings and our habits that we don't even realize that it's actually sabotaging how we could be in terms of the growth and being a high vibrational version of ourselves. We always are, by the way. We're always high vibrational beings, but it's the conditionings and it's the programmings that we have playing on repeat that lowers our vibration, because these programmings create the habits that make us feel disconnected, makes us feel powerless, makes us feel limited. And that's the purpose of this podcast. So we understand that we are limitless beings, but we have been taught otherwise. So this is something that I've been called to do in terms of bringing this wisdom into the present moment to dispel some of these negative beliefs, these limiting beliefs that we grow up in, whatever belief system that it may be for you. In order for me to share this with you guys, I had to have dealt with it myself. And also, I have to never, ever, ever believe that I have stopped growing and that I know everything. Okay. And that's something that's really, really important to me. And I discover more of myself every day. And one thing I really realize is that this path that I've chosen, to me, and this could seem very like woo-woo to some people who maybe aren't in a spiritual space, because I realize that my audience is very wide, and I'm very grateful for you guys. And I just want to just say thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for just allowing me to share my ideas, share my being, share my passion. And I'm just so grateful every time for anyone and everyone that listens, anyone and everyone that resonates with this or even doesn't resonate. Like, it doesn't matter to me, because at the end of the day, whether it comes from me or from someone else or another podcast, like, as long as you get the information that's healing for you, that's really what matters to me. It's not about anything else. Okay, let me get back to what I was saying, but this may sound woo-woo, but on higher dimensional planes, on a higher level, from like an oversoul perspective, I didn't even have a choice, is what it feels like. This is what my soul was designated to do as a light worker. And that's what these medicines are telling me, is like, this is what you're supposed to do. You were supposed to go through the trauma that you went through as a child. You were supposed to go through the addiction that you went through as an adult. You're supposed to keep banging your head up against the wall, Chico, because how else are you going to be able to relate to many people who are in Western culture and in general around this world, on this earth, who are suffering? And this suffering is playing out and has been playing out for eons. To me, it doesn't even feel like a choice. And that's the thing about it, is like purpose, right? I think a lot of people can get stuck in, well, what is my purpose? And I realized that, one, my purpose is to be. Because whenever I was focused on doing left and right, oh, I got to do this and then I'll be accepted, or oh, I can't do that and then I'll be, like, all these things, as opposed to just being. Then I realized through the stillness, and I'll get to that in a second, stillness, I got to like make a mental note. The stillness, like being, and then literally having that information pull through that this is what I was called to do. Like, all of the hardship came to this moment in time, and we all have a purpose, and that purpose is simply to be. And our purpose is to be unconditionally loving towards ourselves and everybody else. Because if you are unconditionally loving to everyone else, or to yourself first and then everyone else, my goodness, what problems do we have as a collective? Okay, if we're not you cannot be judging and loving at the same time. It's impossible. Try it out. Like, I dare you, triple dog dare you. You cannot judge another without judging yourself as well, because everything is a reflection. Again, try it out. So I have, tapped into that beingness of being still. Let's get back to the stillness, because this is something I learned over the weekend. And maybe it's 2 weekends ago, just depending on when I release this, because I do have another episode coming out next week. I don't even know at this point. See, time is just an illusion, Just keep that in mind, that I'm trying to think of this as linearly, but it's crazy because time is an illusion, right? Everything's here and now anyways. You're listening to this here and now. I learned about stillness and concentration, and how even in New Age spirituality, there's still this constant, insistent, this, I can't even say that word, so I'll try a different word. This constant noise going on in the background, in our heads, in our minds, and it's the ego. And that's what I'm realizing is like, I gotta feed my ego less and just be still and concentrate and focus on that stillness in order for me to feel the guidance of the universe, of higher self, of the ancestors who knew what it was like to live in perfect harmony. And so that's something I'm learning, is like, I gotta quiet the mind, open the heart, quiet the mind, open the heart. And that's something I thought I did, but we just keep learning, we keep trucking along, we get better, we get more equipped to be able to handle more of ourselves and understand and love all parts of ourselves. But really, even in New Age spirituality, there's still this heavy identification with the ego. And there's still this sense of like, well, because I have all this spiritual knowledge and I am better than you. And that's all ego. That is all ego. Like, then that makes it no better than organized religion that believes in this way. And I'm not saying not all people who participate in organized religion believes in this way. However, typically there is some level of hierarchy and judgment and just this toxic practice of religious scripture and misrepresentations of it. And that can also happen in any space. And that's something I'm really realizing, is coming to a point of being neutral and observing with my heart, not with my mind. Being able to separate myself from the egoic self and listen with the heart. And so this is all something that I just really want everybody who's listening to take in and really understand, that you are not your mind. We are not our judgments, our thoughts, nothing. And when we focus from our heart, my goodness, that's where we are. That's who we are. And when we're working from a heart space with the heart in mind, we're connecting deeply to other people. And we're able to see everybody as part of this oneness of creation. No matter what you're doing, you can literally be in a courtroom like I will be as I defend whoever I'm defending as a corporate lawyer and a criminal defense lawyer and a public policy lawyer and every type of lawyer that resonates with me, because I'm going all in. I could be in the courtroom and still see the other side as part of that oneness. Doesn't mean I'm going to let them win. But nevertheless, they're part of that oneness. And that is something that's beautiful. And being able to just see that we are part of that divine oneness, and how this idea of falling from grace is really the idea of giving into the ego and believing what the ego is saying whenever it's talking in a negative way. It's just speaking negatively about us. And then because we're wired, and we don't have to be, by the way, but through the subconscious programmings of our parents and our society, we become wired in this way. But because we are wired to be hypervigilant of the fear of rejection, then we give so much weight to negativity because we want to survive. And we feel like if we do not place enough weight on negativity, then we won't survive. So, when we start taking ourselves out of those hypervigilant modes, and guess what? We're actually going to have a podcast episode on this. There's a few podcast episodes I want to talk about, but that's something that we're going to talk about in terms of like shifting out of the hypervigilance mode into creativity, right? Because when you are in hypervigilance mode, when you are in scarcity mentality, ain't no creativity up in there. And I say this in the last episode that just came out, in terms of the attachments and whatnot. Is it attachments? No. No, it's coming out soon. So the last episode, which is our money stories and scarcity mentality. And actually, one of my clients asked me a question about how to get out of scarcity mentality. So y'all be on the lookout for a Q&A episode on how to get out of scarcity mentality, because we're going to talk all about that, understanding why scarcity mentality even comes up when we start to reprogram. And like I said, we'll have an episode on this idea of reprogramming. My goodness, we take ourselves out of survival mode into creative mode. We shift our energy and we can really sit still with that being that I was talking about. And from there, really discover who we are, who we're not, and let that be okay. And leave from example for other people to follow suit if they so choose. So it's a fun journey. This is everything that I'm learning and continue to learn and implement. And I realize that I'm walking that talk. And actually, what got me started with this recording out of nowhere was I was actually recording an audio journal before I just had to stop it and start this one. So, like I said, this is all impromptu. But what I realized and what I came to the conclusion in that recording was like, wow, I actually have shifted my negative state. I used to live in a predominantly negative state, in that if something were to happen, my first thought was negative before I would shift it into a positive state, if I did. So it started off with just being in a negative state, right? And then from there, I learned how to shift this. It's called sponsoring thought. So I shift that thought into something positive. It's like, okay, well, let me look at the positive. But now what's crazy is most of the time I'm in a positive state. I'm shifting the positive. I don't even have to shift, but rather I start off the sponsoring thought now, which is like the first thought that comes up, is now positive. And then I will think of, ooh, but what if that were to happen? And I never thought that I would get to this place where my first thoughts are positive. So much so that people, whenever I try explaining this, it almost feels like, if I were to feel invalidated, it would happen because they don't understand. But I tell you this because it's possible. It is possible to not have to do so much work anymore. Once you do the work, you don't have to, continue telling yourself or convincing yourself that you're worthy, that you're loved, that you're abundant, that you're whole, that you're free. You don't have to keep convincing yourself once you have done the convincing. You don't have to keep worrying about, man, will I always be negative? Will I always have to continue shifting my negative state into a positive state? Because no, the more you do that, what's happening is you're reprogramming. And this is why it's important that I create an episode on the reprogramming, because I am proof that you don't have to keep doing the work, so to speak, forever. Once it becomes the new norm, once it becomes the new programming, that is it. There's nothing more. And when I think about that, it can be overwhelming in a positive way, because it feels like I did it. Like I finally did it. Shifted that negative gunk into something positive. And the journey that I'm on, the plant medicine journeys that I'm on, the healing journey I'm on, the coaching, all of that is just further confirmation that it's possible. And I am so convicted in this, so convicted on this idea of anybody and everyone can shift into a positive state and can attract everything that they need and want, desire, anything to succeed when we shift our beliefs, when we sit with our being, when we let go of the weird stories that we tell ourselves, the weird things that do not align with us. When we let that go, life gets easier. This does not mean that challenges do not come up, because I have shit hitting the fan quite a bit sometimes. There are things right now that are up in the air that I can go ahead and talk about in terms of me going to law school and literally moving away from where I've lived most of my life, which, I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I've been in this area since I was little. And now I'm moving to another area, still in Texas, but it's 5 hours away. And that's a huge move for me. And I don't know where I'm going. Now, of course, I already have an apartment and all of that, but it won't be ready for another who knows how long at this point. Maybe 3 weeks, because I asked hey, if it's ready, let's do an early move-in thing. I'll pay whatever, I'm abundant. That's not a big deal. But I just got the news today that, hey, it may not be ready, but I'm still going there anyways. And I have no idea what's going to come of it. No idea. And I realized that this type of situation of not knowing what's going to happen would freak me out in the past and probably would freak many people out. But I'm just like in this conviction, in this knowing that everything happens, one, for a reason, and two, everything will work out in divine timing as it should. This does not negate action. But what it does do is it negates worry. It negates anxiety, because that's not part of the action plan. And I don't have to think about, oh, okay, let me not panic. It's just like, I know that panic is not going to get things solved. So that's another thing that I will talk about in another episode coming up in terms of worry and anxiety energy and how it creates the negative manifestations. So we have a lot to discuss. We have so much to talk about. So first, I really want to just tell you guys thank you so much. Also, please subscribe, share this, like this. Anytime that you guys share, like, love all of my podcasts, it helps so many people. It helps the algorithm perform better. And the more less people we have, sorry, I messed up. But the more less hurt people we have hurting people, the better world we can create. So it's really, really greatly appreciated if you guys can go ahead and subscribe to my podcast, subscribe on YouTube. I'm everywhere. Subscribe, share this with your friends, share this with your family, share this with a person on the street that you think is struggling. Because again, the information here that I share is just pouring from the heart of true understanding, unconditional love. There's no judgment here, because what I do to myself is what I do unto others, and I don't judge myself, so why would I judge you, right? And at the end of the day, it's all love here, baby. And like, this is what I was called to do. So I really do appreciate you guys for sharing this information, for getting the word out there, for helping a sister out. I love that so much. Thank you guys for letting me share just a little bit about my life in this impromptu podcast. Now the sky's really dark and it's time for me to, head on inside. It's been really, really fun just getting on my phone's mic, and I'll probably clean it up a little bit, honestly. But getting on my phone's mic and just doing it, just talking, speaking from the heart. And I always speak from the heart, but it feels good to speak from the heart with no freaking script, no plan of how things are going to go, just having a normal conversation. If, by the way, you wanted to ask me a question, please feel free. You guys can email me. You can reach out, subscribe to my newsletter on my website. The links are in the show notes. But definitely reach out. DM me as well on Instagram at Madam Chiko, also in the show notes. For any questions that you may have, I'm always willing to answer it. And who knows, I might answer it on a podcast episode, because I think it's really important whenever one person has a question, just know that there are thousands of other people who probably have that same question or something similar. So you are helping not just yourself, but me and a collective heal. And that's what this is all about. So thank you guys so much for getting into alignment with me and wanting to be more of yourself by letting go of all the things that are just not you. Because we've been conditioned and programmed to be in a state of disempowerment, to feel like we got to hustle and struggle in order to learn a lesson, when we are at the day and age where we don't have to struggle, where we don't have to suffer. We really, really don't. And so let's shift our beliefs. Let's shift ourselves into a state of being and let go of things that are not part of our purpose, that are not part of our truth. And I hope that this helped you guys see just how powerful you are too. I am not special, okay? We're all part of that divine oneness. And we all have the capability to step into our truth and be the best version of us. So I love you guys so much. I am so grateful for you. Thank you for being here with me on the podcast. And guess what? I will see you all next week, more than likely, because I've been putting out more podcast episodes lately since I'm getting out of my head and onto the mic, because at the end of the day, I'm here to help everybody, including myself. So I'll see y'all next week on You Are Limitless, y'all.